Ooh, we're back, baby. Horns up, talking Texas podcasts. Fisher DeSopoulos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Kreider, the Quan Cosby. Those listening on ESPN 102.7 Austin. What's up? Happy game day. The Georgia Bulldogs are in town. And if I told you guys when we first started doing this podcast that Kirby Smart and the Georgia Dogs were coming in to DKR and our boys in Burnt Orange were 5.5-point favorites, what would you say?
Hold on, the line moved? I thought it was 3.5.
It's
It's
moved.
at 5.5.
I would say that is a pretty damn good job by Sark, staff, and players, and we are clearly trending in the right direction.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I put out there was a tweet out that said this is the biggest weekend or for anybody, going to Austin, right? If we're talking about recruits, why would you not go to the ATX? Aside from on the field production, the students get to experience back-to-back weeks at ACL, OU weekend, Georgia weekend, F1. It is becoming one of the pinnacles of places to be for sports and entertainment. And if you're a recruit or a college student, how do you not look at our university and go, I have to go here? I retweeted it and said, end the Georgia game too after reading it. And Nick texted me. He's like, dude, are you serious? Because there was so much in the caption of things going on. I missed the Georgia game. I thought they didn't include it. That's how much is going on in our city right now. And we're hosting this Georgia team. There's like a gazillion 5-star recruits coming. It's one of the biggest recruiting weekends we've ever had. And we're favored. And a lot of people think, I've just talked to friends who aren't Texas fans, and people think that line's too small based off what they've seen from us. And we could get into the OU game because, yes, our offense kind of got into a good rhythm. It took Quinn a little bit to get his juices flowing again and get back into the flow of things. But from a defensive standpoint, we couldn't have asked for a better game. It was an absolute onslaught on what they thought they had to offer as their best offensive product. Yes, the 49-0 game was fantastic, but we did go into that game knowing they had a lot of injuries on the offense, and we weren't going to see what Oklahoma felt was their quote-unquote best. We got this past Saturday what Oklahoma felt was their quote-unquote best, and we held them to 3 points. We were talking pre-show. That quarterback had nowhere to go, to a point where Toss was just like almost rooting for the poor kid to make something happen and get the ball out of his hands. So Quan, not to age you here, but you had the most OU experience as a player and now post-playing career. Pre-game, during game, post-game, how did that Oklahoma win stack up against other Oklahoma experiences you had?
Man, I tell you what, it's a little bit different because I know you said that was the best they have, but they actually did have a lot of injuries too. We talked about that. They had five, receivers out, a couple of linemen, defensive players, and then Quinn was coming back for injury from us. And you know what? I will say this. A friend of mine was talking, and they said they were so frustrated they didn't go to the game. They said because all the announcers could talk about was OU's injuries, and it was like, do they forget that we have 4 running backs out? We actually have our fair share. If Baxter's in this game tomorrow, Saturday or today, the line's probably 15 because he's that good. Nick Saban said potentially the best back in the league. But, man, as far as experience, and I got to get a shout out to the president's office. There's a little lady over there named Courtney. She put on one of the coolest tailgates. And we're in the fair, and you feel like you're in botanical gardens with burnt orange flowers everywhere. So that was how you started, walking into a massive Bevo for pictures. And then you went to the next part, the crazy, always get into the game. And 2:30, man, I laugh because a lot of people, because their schedule is so set for 11, it's like, I hate it. They can kiss my butt. That 2:30 start was clutch. I actually started this game not hungover, so it was it was pretty freaking awesome. And then the way it started, like we always, it's funny, we forget these kids are human. And Quinn was out for almost a month of not playing, and he went in there a little bit rusty, missed some big ones. The thing I saw was no one can still cover our receivers, but bigger than that, when he settled down and Sark saw that and kind of found some things. It was impressive. Our run game, impressive. It was just and then defense, holy folks, Anthony Hill is on another level.
Yeah.
He just is. Colin Simmons, Alfred. It was just from an experience standpoint, outside of the game that I was in, 45-35, that was the best game I've been to from a Texas OU standpoint. And kudos because the Golden had his where it needed to be in the 5-1-2.
Yeah. I mean, from an Anthony Hill standpoint, I hate to be the Kool-Aid guy here, but he just week in and week out not only is so dominant and so impressive, but he just continues to get better and come into his own more and more. And he's only a sophomore. Do you guys think he has a chance at the current pace he's at? If he keeps it up, knock on wood, stays healthy, continues to grow his game and keeps dominating like he's dominating, being a leader on maybe the best defense in the country, does he have the potential to be the greatest player on the defensive side of the football in our program history?
Ooh,
Ooh,
that is crazy
ooh,
high
that's
praise.
It's a crazy statement. I'm just throwing it out there.
I, you can knock that. No, I do not think so. DJ is going to this game this weekend. We got Casey Hampton and we got Corey Redding. We
Rack.
have Basher. We have Huff. We have Ross. I can go on and on and on. So that is just so hard to say that he could be that. And let's not even talk about the dude that played before Nobis, before we were even born. But he can be one of the best, certainly in the last 30 years. One of the best, but that's a very long list of them. And to be honest, to even be mentioned in that category is next level. It really is. And he is that special if he continues to do what he's doing and grow. But the best, I don't know if I can go that far, but certainly in the top 10.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
And that's a big deal.
that's tough. I mean, obviously, Q, like your squad is the early 2000s squad, so it's like there's definitely some generational, grades for you, like there is for us too, growing up. But the beautiful thing about college football and sports in general is that you can make your stamp on each decade. It doesn't necessarily have to be of all time, or it can be just each
Yeah.
type of era, right? Where Anthony Hill can definitely be the best defensive player in this current era, maybe like post Mac Brown era. That's probably safe to say. Post
I was
Mac
about to say,
Brown era.
I don't think that's even close so far if he
Yeah.
continues. Yeah. And by the way, we have some great ones, Sweat, Murphy, but I mean, what he's doing is next level.
It's just such a major impact. Like, that's why I ask. I know it's a crazy question, and I know it's pretty much we're not even 10 minutes into the show, and I'm tossing out insane hypothetical. We haven't even really previewed the game that we're supposed to be covering, and I'm tossing out insane hypotheticals. I just watch our team, and I think we all have the same reaction. It has been so long, and Nick, you talk about the post-Mac Brown era. It has been since then that we've had a defense that we could hang our hat on. That when the offense goes 3 and out, when the offense punts, I'm not like, oh no, here come the points. Now we're going to have to battle from behind. It's like, all right, cool. We'll get the ball back in 3 minutes. Like, that's literally how I felt from the jump. And he is such a pivotal piece to that. Like, yes, Simmons is great. Barron has been insane. We haven't talked about Vernon Broughton enough on the show, but Anthony Hill really is the engine that makes this defense go.
We have allowed 3 touchdowns this season
in 6 games. And we played 2 or 3 ranked teams, 2 ranked teams. 1 top 10.
That's crazy. 3 touchdowns is
ridiculous.
like that's and we Toss, what were you gonna say?
No, I just
and one of them was like a garbage time, like last minute touchdown on our like third team defense too. I think that was the
Michigan game.
The end of the game.
we've also been in positions where we've been blowing the other team out and our threes are in and they got stops at the end of the game as the clock hit 0, which is to me almost as impressive. The thing that you're asking, Josh, he's going to be gone after next year. Like, he's not playing 4 years, and the OGs, like most of them played 4 years, so they have, from a statistical standpoint, that leverage over him. But that's what we want, right? We want guys leaving after their junior year because our team is so good and they're going to be a first round draft pick. I mean, I talk on our other show, our sister pod, Stripe Sports, about Fred Warner all the time because I feel like when you watch him on Sundays, he just shows up in every single frame of your TV, and it just felt the same way with Hill. And I was rooting for Hawkins at a certain point because we were beating him up so bad. But when he ran 3 yards up the line of scrimmage and I saw Anthony Hill behind him, I go, oh, I know he is grabbing that ball and ripping it out. It's a guarantee. And what Nick and I were talking about earlier this week, which credit to our coaching, our guys are on the football. They're on that cradle every single time they tackle. And we have such intention on the defensive side. And it starts with him. He's one of our leaders. And I can't wait to see what he does against the most quality offense that we've seen thus far in the Georgia Bulldogs. And that's statistically, yes. From a personnel standpoint, yes. And obviously from a quarterback standpoint, we haven't seen anyone like Carson Beck to this point.
Not even close. And you brought up the coaches, and I want to say this in the coaches, because what we discussed Sark, and we've given PK some flowers, but I think we were all a little nervous. We lost Sweat, we lost Murphy, and then we lost Bo Davis. I think that made us a bit nervous. That's a big loss in the coaching staff. We were so nervous to lose Coach Choice. What we've done with Kenny Baker coming in, with Johnny Nansen coming in, replacing the coaching staff, and Sark's ability to get new guys in, it's like we likened it to Saban. That's what we wanted to see from Sark. Yes, we wanted to play on the field. Yes, we wanted the recruiting. But what Saban did, every time there was a great coach that didn't have a head coaching job available, next thing you know, he was on Alabama's staff. Every time. Bill O'Brien, Lane Kiffin, Sark himself, they were on Alabama's staff. So to see Sark not only be able to recruit and get the right players in the mix and get the most out of them, but bring in and replace coaches now at a successful level to a point where it's like we're not even really talking, and it's no offense to Bo Davis, his impact on the university was great, but we're not even really talking about that loss, which had our defense not been as good as it is right now, we certainly would be.
I think I can talk a little bit more now that he's at LSU and they're having a decent season and he's getting his love over there. That's his alma mater. But the truth of the matter is Bo Davis was perfect timing from a cultural standpoint. He knew the place. He knew the standard. They needed to change the culture, the attitudes, the mindset from the guys. We all know about the rant, and it could not have been better from a timing standpoint. But Bo Davis, what we got in Nance, what we got in the other guys, first of all, another NFL guy, but we got guys who also embrace the recruiting aspect of it. And so what Sark is doing, Bo Davis is great at coaching up anybody. But I'm not sure old school man still really liked the recruiting piece of it. I'm gonna be honest. Everybody asks me why I never coach because I don't want to recruit. And so I respect them. It's not a knock on them, but so going back to giving these coaches their flowers is they are the complete package. They do buy in every way, form, or fashion. They know Sark's kind of perspective of, hey, we're not bucking you, dude. You're right. The more, guys we have flying around the ball, killing it like we do, the better we all are going to be. And as you can see, recruiting is still rocking and rolling. So, man, these coaches, they're the real deal. I think Nance, by the way, I also think he had a chance to be, what was he? He was the defensive coordinator. That's the other, we're getting hand coach. PK was a head coach. Nance was a DC. And they're like, no, let me come over here and play a role and ball out and win a natty. And you just don't see that very often. So kudos to Sark and the way he leads and the way he synergistically leads, that he empowers everybody. And it is, bro, they know their personnel. They're getting the most out of all of them.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like Nance, didn't he get an opportunity to potentially be the head coach for Arizona after they hired their head coach over at Washington? So that was being discussed.
It was basically it was like a done deal. Yeah, it was like it nearly happened. It was at the inch line, basically. You're so right. And not just Sark, but keeping the 1s, 2s, and 3s. I mean, I talked about the 3s, like the guys at the back of the depth chart are prepared. We've been dealt, like you mentioned, Quan, a ton of injuries. Like, shout out to Coach Milwee, our quarterbacks coach, And
Yeah.
Josh, you mentioned Coach Choice. Contrevion Wisner ran for 100+ yards against Oklahoma on less than 15 carries. That guy was our RB4. Like
Yes.
this guy he's a stud. He fights for extra yards. Like this guy he's going to take the bulk of the carries going forward. And this was a guy that at the end of last season, we were like, oh, let's go. Wisner's in the game. He's scrappy. He's
I feel
shifty.
like
Like,
that is so Texas. That has happened to us
Okay.
the last couple of seasons where no one thought Jonathan Brooks was going to be our guy, right? No one thought that Deontay Foreman at the time was going to be the guy. Those weren't the guys
Right.
that were supposed to be, the Doak Walker winners. But I mean, obviously, I don't think Wisner's going to win the Doak Walker this year. But like, that's so Texas for our running back just to come in and just shake up the world and prove everyone wrong.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's coach and player, and it's just that harmony right there. And I mentioned Milwee because obviously Arch Manning came in as our backup quarterback and was ready to play. And Coach Banks, like you mentioned, Josh, Coach Baker, he had all of these defensive linemen ready to play. And we have new faces, yes, but we also have a really deep room. So our focus, our preparation, like it's clearly there. And I think to take it to this weekend's game, that's what gives us the advantage, is because from the offense to the defense, we have been a more consistent football team than the Georgia Bulldogs to this point. And there was a quote that I saw from Kirby Smart, and he said, I want to see our guys play their best game against Texas. Simply stated, we have not played our best game. And I believe that. I don't think they've played their best game. I don't think we've played our best, as like laudatory as I'm being about the Horns right now. I don't think we've played our best game either.
No,
And
absolutely
you, by
not.
the way, you also said, excuse me, Baker, not Banks. No, Banks is killing it too.
Yeah,
Banks
Banks is
and our
yeah.
special teams have not really had a lot of opportunities. We talked about it last week that we're going to see Bolden or somebody get a good return, things you have to do in this game. And what did we see? He was back there. He was
He's great.
aggressive. He was empowered. Every time in the stand, somebody like, I'm like, no. That dude is dropping them. And at some point, it's going to matter. And he made huge return. Now, let's not even talk about the Jay Witt level effort play of recovering the touchdown. Dude, it's just so much to be excited about,
It's a
proud
mindset.
of. It's nuts, man. That dude had no reason. He made his block. He did his job. He could have easily sat there and watched that play.
He covered
But that's just
55
not who
yards.
they are.
He ran
Was
a
that-
total of 55 yards around the field to basically go and get that ball. I mean, that's a mindset right there. That's a mentality that like you were stopping at nothing. He kind of reminds me, and like this is a weird cross sport, but he's a spark plug. He reminds me of a leadoff hitter in baseball. Like the guy who just like, sets the table for you, that is just going to get on base, try to steal bags for you. I mean, I feel like he was such a good pickup for us.
Or like a
Huge. I
utility
love
guy.
that comparison too, because
Yeah.
listen, you might get him out. You might even strike him out, but it's going to take 9 pitches. He's just that dude, and he's scrappy, and you're going to get annoyed, and the pitcher's going to be pissed off. And it's like, why do I have to keep – oh, crap, he's coming up. Pitch count just got out of whack. So that's who he reminds me of. Got him a touchdown the way he did. It still counts because you know what? He doesn't have a touchdown if he don't make that effort. So there, it's that's why so many people, to the way you started this, Josh, are going, they're not enough. They're not enough. I get what they're saying, but Georgia with one loss, knowing what that'll mean if they lose again.
Yeah.
We're about to see a different team. Not necessarily desperate, but yes. Yeah, they're not leaving anything out there.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, if they suffer a loss here, their season could be over. If we suffer a loss here, then it's the one loss against Georgia that, still keeps us alive regardless. But yeah, I mean, it means a lot to both teams, but I guarantee you Georgia is going to hurt a lot more if they lose this game. So this is
Georgia, in my
a must
opinion,
win for them.
I think I don't know how with what you're seeing, and I know some people still have to play each other. Georgia, you don't even they already don't really control their destiny. But if you go 2 losses with what you're seeing with Miami, what you're seeing with Oregon in the Big Ten has like 4 teams in the top 8 as well. And so now they're probably start playing each other, but I think there's gonna be. I'm just not convinced there's going to be a 2-loss team in the top 12.
Well,
Yeah.
how about all those teams you listed out of conference? But how about the Aggies, who have lost one game, but it was out of conference at home? Yes,
And
against Notre
by the way,
Dame, who's
Notre
about to be a
Dame's still
top
pretty
10
good.
team. So they
They're
got to
going to
watch
be playing
out.
pretty desperate.
Yeah,
On
Matt
the road
Campbell.
against the number 1 team. And this is honestly how you make up for you being number 1 losing to Bama.
Yeah.
Because didn't they lose that at home?
No, they lost that in
Lost on the road.
Oh,
Tuscaloosa.
no, that was Tuscaloosa. That was
I mean, their
Tuscaloosa.
schedule is
I feel like Bama
horrible.
wore white. Do they wear white at home?
I think they might. Did they wear white? Yeah, I
Nah.
think they
I,
I don't remember.
Well, they lost in Tuscaloosa, but they also lost at the end of last year in Atlanta in the SEC championship against Alabama.
Yeah.
So that was a huge loss too. I mean, I think for the stakes, like the stakes are so high for both teams. The way that I look at it, their stakes are currently more narrow-minded than ours are. Both are incredibly large, but ours are like, if we beat Georgia, like Nick, like you said, if we lose, we're still very much in the hunt for the SEC championship to play in that game and to get to the college football playoff. If they don't do that, then they might be in jeopardy of not making either of those. If we win this game, not only are we still the number one team in the country, but we've made a massive statement, not just for this year, but going forward as well. Kirby loses to Kalen DeBoer and to Steve Sarkisian, both new head coaches in the SEC. Like that's huge. Those are massive talking points, at least for the talking heads on the big talk shows who are talking SEC football. Paul Feinbaum, what do you got to say?
I was
You know
just
what I
about
mean?
to say Paul Feinbaum would literally not sleep for 2 weeks. He's gonna be like,
He-
"What the what?" But
he-
he also would be giddy because that's what you want. Like when these coaches come, they thought the SEC was going to take a little bit of a hit losing to Nick Saban, and let's be real, everybody would feel that way. But kudos to DeBoer coming in and beating and dethroning the Georgia, so to speak. And then of course you got Texas and Sark, who again to this point undefeated in the conference and number one team in the country. Yeah, it's still an SEC team, but one that's been there for not even a full year. So all of that is why this game is insane. And let's be real, there's another SEC game that is massive and almost, to be honest, bigger than this one. Now,
Mhm.
this one's bigger because we're biased and we're Longhorns and we want to beat them for all the reasons we want. But you talk about Tennessee and Bama. Again, the loser of that's what I said. And I don't know if we talked about it last week. I was like, these games this week are massive. You got Miami, I think Louisville. I mean, you have a lot of really big games that are gonna help shape this picture of what's been one of the most epic college football seasons in a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you go across I mean, look, LSU has to go to Arkansas. That's a brutal place to play. And the thing is we're talking about, a two-loss team not getting in. I think at the beginning of the year we were like, oh, a two-loss team could get in because it could be a crazy year. But there are so many teams playing great football. And we're not even talking Big 12. We're not even talking ACC, by the way. Clemson's kind of back in the mix with Miami, and they could kind of control their own destiny a little bit because their one loss is, like you said, toss with, A&M out of conference. Matt Campbell, who we never have to see again, hopefully, has the Iowa State Cyclones at a very quiet 6-0, very quiet top 10 ranking that nobody is talking about. I mean, that guy is literally he is a football nut and football psycho. Georgia's playing for their season, arguably, and we're kind of playing for the crown.
Yeah.
If we win this game, if we take down, I know it's at home, but if they come into our house and we take down Kirby Smart, who's been the king of the SEC, yes, and I know it's been Saban's conference, but he has been the king the past couple seasons, this past 5-year cycle. If we take him out and take him down, and that means we've gone into Michigan, the defending national champs, I don't care if their team is worse or not than last year. If we do that and make that statement, and then Georgia comes into town and we take care of business on this grand of a stage, we're kind of in control. We still have to take care of business. We can't we can't take the foot off the gas against the Vandies, the Kentuckys, especially A&M at the end of the year, and Arkansas and Florida. But if we win this game and take care of business, we're in the driver's seat controlling the SEC, which is the most competitive as far as recruits go, in my opinion, conference in the nation. They're all competing for the same guys, whereas Ohio State, the Oregons, they kind of have their own little pockets. Yes, they dip into what would be considered ours, but they have their own little pockets, whereas Bama, LSU, Texas, and Georgia are competing for 99% of the same kids.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I kind of have the feeling that if we win this game against Georgia, there's no reason in my mind to think that this isn't one of those dominant seasons that you see, like that LSU season when they had Joe Burrow, right? Or like the Georgia season from a couple of seasons ago where they just mopped the floor with everybody. I mean, to this point, that's how it's looked, right? And I want to throw a couple of stats at you guys really quickly, just in terms of our defense, because that's how we started the show. Currently, we're ranked number 1 in these categories: scoring defense, total defense, yards per play, and yards per attempt. And then a big one is called stop rate, which last year, Michigan's stop rate was number 1 in the nation, and it was 81.6% of their FBS opponents. Okay. So that basically means drives ending in either a turnover, a punt, or a turnover on downs. We have an 87.1 stop rate so far through 6 games, number 1 in the nation. Like, that is literally 6 points better than the defending national championship from last year. So if we keep on this trend of having this elite defense, I mean, I don't care who's playing quarterback. Like, if you can't score on us, like, you're not gonna get far at all. Like, we don't need to put up more than 30 points a game if that's the case. I mean, we are
Yeah.
anyway. But like, I mean, how can you compete with that? And I mean, college football in general, like, the big teams have a really big margin over the small teams. Like, that's just how it is. Like, there's not a ton of parity besides the top, 4 teams sometimes. Number 1 could mop the floor with number 5 on any given Saturday usually. So the fact that we're above and beyond every single team, like, isn't that unrealistic to me? Like, you've got the right guy at the helm at coaching, you've brought in your right guys, you have the right culture, like, everything is clicking. We're talking about coaches. Like, this just could be one of those dominant years where, like, no one could even come close.
Well, I think that's a great point, because as Josh, you were kind of breaking down the SEC and college football at large. It got me thinking about how you mentioned the 2-loss team and how that felt viable for a college football playoff berth when we were talking at the beginning of the season. I think one thing that we all underrated was how much of a microscope there is on SEC football in general. So when Georgia wins a close game against Kentucky, right? When Vanderbilt beats Alabama, now even the wins, when they're close, if the middle of the SEC is playing competent football and looks good, then, if you slip up and you're Alabama and you lose to Vanderbilt, like, that's a blemish on your ledger right there, more so than them. Like, Georgia lost to Alabama. Okay, that's fine. Like, that's okay, because those teams are all in the top 10. Like, that's going to happen. There's going to be some cannibalism. But when they play a close game with Kentucky as well, who got piped by South Carolina, all of a sudden people start doing drawing the red yarn all over the place. And guess what? Those 2 losses look a lot worse when, the rest of the teams in the SEC are actually pretty good. So we have done the distinct thing of any college football team. That's why we're number 1, of leaving no doubt, right? And that is exactly what you're talking about, Nick. And even even Ohio State going into that Oregon game, and I guess now Oregon, like, neither of them were quite in that category, right?
Exactly.
Like Oregon played a couple of close games early on. Now they've really hit a rhythm. And of course, it's more important how you finish than how you started.
Yeah.
But
I mean, people were calling for Oregon to jump us, but like, there's literally no merit to that. Like, we left no doubt on the field that we beat the number 18 team, our biggest rival in OU, right? And so these, like, college football and NFL are different sports. I mean, Quan, that. Like, you've played them both. If you win a game in the NFL by 2 points, it's the same as winning a game by 30 points. Like, a win's a win. There's nothing to do with the rankings. It's all about your record. But in college football, it's all about merit. It's all about dominance. It's all about, like, how much can I beat this team by? That's why you see 70-point blowouts. Cause, like, I was saying the other day, I was like, are we going to kneel the ball ever? Cause, like, Sark loves to run the clock out and just doesn't have to kneel the ball ever. Like, he just keeps on running with his running backs, and if they score, they score. I mean, that's just more points to add to our ledger. That's how college football is. You need those resounding dominant wins.
And the elephant in the room is we're not special to not dealing with everyone else. We've had our injuries. We 2 of those dominant wins was with our backup quarterback, and we still dominated. That is what college football is looking at, going, hold up. Their starter, who was leading the Heisman, went out 2 touchdowns, and then their backup came back and threw 2 more than him and ran for 1, threw 4 the next game. Like, that's, dude, and we've talked about it, but that we've been that dominant, and we've had the same freaking injuries and situations and parity and stuff as everyone else. And that's where I think it truly separates and why people are going, hell, again, Quinn, 21 for 29, touchdown, running touchdown. And people are going, I don't know. He started slow. We need to think
I
about
mean,
our
those are the worst two offensive drives back to back at the beginning of the game that we've had maybe all season.
in a
by a
rivalry
mile.
game. And he hadn't
And
played in a month.
yeah,
By a
So
mile.
that's where we are. That truly is why a lot of people, and again, I'm sure as much as I've learned a little bit about this spread stuff, I still don't know a lot. So I don't know why the line's moving. Maybe bets coming in, but
Yeah, it's
I do
bad.
know that at the end of the day, this team is different. We can talk about the games. The proof is in the pudding. But when you go to every one of them, and I have it so far this year, it's just a different feel in the way they prepare, and you swing by the locker room, and it's business, and it's cool to see that on that level. I think we talked about it 2 or 3 years ago, and I said, man, you know what I see different is there's just a confidence. There's a way they go about it, and as much as I saw the progression, Sark's freaking influence on what we have out there and what we're seeing, and every coach is going down who's all bought into it. It's just really hard to. Can anything happen? You have turnovers, you screw up. Yes, let's be real. That's football. But I'm getting closer to thinking we truly have to beat ourselves because I think we have the best roster in the country. And if they execute, it's going to be a long day. And as crazy as it sounds, it starts. My confidence growth had everything to do with what Nick just talked about. Our defense is for real.
And on our defensive side, talk about our personnel that we have on the field. One thing we haven't discussed 32 minutes through the show is the unfortunate injury Derek Williams suffered, one of our top safeties. And our team is so good, and it's nothing against him. And we know, and through you, Quan, and talking to other players, and just through our knowledge of watching this game and how brutal it can be at times, how unfortunate an injury for a young man is, and how we want him to get better, and how thankfully he's still young in his collegiate career and could come back.
and
On the flip side,
can still redshirt too because of
yeah,
the limited games he played.
and on the flip side, the benefit we see, it's not a play, and he's so good. He's a massive impact. He's one of our highest rated players on PFF. But our team is so good that that's not dire news in the sense that, oh no, what are we going to do without D Will? We'll miss him, but we have a bunch of other guys that could fill in for him. We had like almost 30 guys see the field on defense last week. That's like a ridiculous amount of players to see snaps. And a lot of them, it's not one snap, it's 10 plus snaps. So the personnel and everyone bought in. I think everyone also smells a little blood in the water and a little money in the pocket. Like, how many scouts are at this game? Like, Silas Bolden's playing for some cash here. And if he's not going to, and he has two choices, and it's a whole mental thing. And I think it goes back to, you're talking about Sark's imprint. Silas Bolden not getting his catches, he could choose to kind of, have a bad attitude and kind of take plays off and not try to make an impact and do the bare minimum. Or he could maximize his potential and maximize his opportunity. And that guy goes 110%. And you see him making plays. And if you're an NFL scout, you're like, oh, you know what? I haven't seen him do a lot in the receiving game, but goddamn, that guy he just refuses to take a fair catch. And he's a great punt returner. And he's going to fight for every damn yard. And that's making him cash in a certain way. Like, Keelan Robinson wasn't like a bell cow. He's a 6th-round pick. He was not, or he was like our number 3 running back. He wasn't toting the rock like a drafted running back. But in his limited time and, in the opportunity he chose to seize, because of the mentality our program now has, that guy becomes a 6th-round pick, and someone sees fit to have him on an NFL roster. So I think these guys are also seeing, what? We have a gazillion recruits coming. How many NFL scouts do you think are going to be at this game? Like, realistically,
There would be 32 teams represented at this game.
32 teams represented at this game. Both quarterbacks could be top 10 picks. Our left tackle could be the number 1 overall pick. By the way, our right tackle, Cam Williams, he could be a top 10 pick too. And that's not even talking about the defensive side they have with Michael Williams and Malachi Starks, their edge and their safety, two really strong, dominant players. Bond, who hopefully will be at somewhat close to full strength for this contest because we need him. And
Alfred
then
Collins has been there for a while. It's a contract year for him, and he's balling.
Vernon
He-
Broughton. I mean, I
Vernon-
saw CJ Vogel tweeted the other day. No, who has made more money maybe for the Longhorns this season than Vernon Broughton? Like, these guys are not stupid, and that's I would say the benefit of the NIL era. Oh, they see the money they can make. And people are not only telling them, oh, you can make money in college and then good luck after. Oh, you think this is good money? Imagine the money you can now make at the next level, because that money is life-changing money. That's generational money. And I think these guys are smart, and there's things in place that Sark has for a professional program that these guys want to come in and execute that and maximize it. So a guy like Vernon Broughton's like, Sweat and Murphy were top 40 picks. Why not me? Why not me in this system? And you know what? I got Trey Moore on one side. He's the sack numbers aren't there. He had 5 hurries last game. 5. That guy's there. He's close. Like Burke, Sorrell, then obviously Simmons and Hill. These guys, he's got so much talent around and makes his job easier. Might as well maximize it. So I think there's just that mentality these kids have and that realization that they could change their lives game in and game out by, bettering their cause for the next level. I think that's just another thing, another piece of this university is given to the players. And if from a recruiting standpoint, you're seeing that, why not? You have 32. Yeah, we have 20 recruits. Guess what? There's more scouts. Like, they are there in the building, and you'll see them and you'll know that. And their presence is being made. So to have that on primetime is fantastic. I do want to, because we can't take this opponent lightly. I know we feel really great, and as
Dude,
we should.
I was literally just thinking it. I was like, listen, we are
Let's.
Swan Josh style diving into
I know
this.
we're swan dive.
And
Let me.
it's really hard not to. It's really hard not to.
I'll pull us back down.
But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
Georgia's had not one but 2 national championships in the last few years. And then they have a guy that I know very, very personal. He's one of the best in the business. We thought this was going to be a little bit of this last week because Oklahoma's defense is good. But they have, Coach Muschamp over there. He's not going to be intimidated by the Knights. Now he's going to be blown away going, this is a makeover. Because as much as it was fun during our days,
it's different.
dude, drone shows, orange smoke that chokes out the band, freaking all this different stuff they have going on. The music. When Muschamp was there, they were playing Toby Keith and George Strait. Now they're playing Boosie. And so it's just a whole different deal. So he will be like, okay, kudos. I see why they're winning, but he's one of the best. And he gets it. I think he's even meeting with Serge and Rackpo and some of the guys whenever they get here to say what's up. So it's cool. And much love from Coach Muschamp. Now Saturday he can kiss it, and then Sunday I like him again. But that guy's a real deal. So those guys, they are good, man. Even the way Bama did them, and I don't know that their game plan was all that great, but they came storming back and was a pick in the end zone from tying it up and had momentum. And in my opinion, they go into OT. They're probably pulling that off. And so they're good. Beck has this game right here versus this defense. We're talking about guys making money. Beck hadn't been talked about for a few weeks. There's a good way to get back in the Heisman talk and to solidify being that first overall pick if you go and absolutely destroy the first, the number 1 defense in the country. And so they have all of that in mind. They have a lot to play for, like I said, in a semi-desperate fashion. So it's gonna be real. It's gonna be put like this. We're in the SEC now, but this game right here, similar to some Georgias and Bamas, which we never really saw in a regular season too often before this year. This is gonna take even SEC ball to another level, if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah, and before we go around the horn, I just want to ask you something quickly, Q. What happens then in that situation if Beck does start dealing? We are the number 1 team. We've grown accustomed this season to not allowing any scores, to not allowing these things happen. So it may be in your experience when you played or stuff you've seen, in the past, how does a team who's so accustomed and so acclimated to not allowing anything, when the floodgates do open a little bit, how do you adjust? What's the mentality on offense? What's the locker room?
Well, I hope the floodgates. I hope there's a sprinkle and not floods.
Yeah.
But they have to understand that dude's a real deal, and I mean their offense is real. I can't think of his receiver's name, but that dude. I mean he's mossing people like crazy.
Love
Probably
it.
gonna be first round pick. Um, this team is not. They watch the film, right? They know that it's going to be a different level team and talent, and they're going to have to go to battle. And so, if they make a play, it is what it is. What I hope happens, two things: one, Quinn, yours. It's another chance for you to get back on the map like you were and go out duel them. And we always, if there was receivers on the other team, I was like, you know what? I help our chances to win if I have better stats and better numbers than that guy on the other side. I know he's playing our defense. I know all that. Is it apples to apples? No, but I do know common sense says if I catch 2, 3 touchdowns, that's going to be a hard game for them. And so, one, I still do believe our defense is that good. Georgia's offense running game, believe it or not, hasn't been what it's been. And so, if they're just going to toss it 50 times like they have been, Colin Simmons, these guys are going to make it really hard on them, in my opinion. But then, two, um, our offense, we're talking about that number one defense. Don't we have a top 5 offense? And so Muschamp is good, but he still has some people to deal with. That Oklahoma defense is really, really good. But a Rusty Quinn missed a few opportunities to absolutely, burn them for massive explosive plays. I don't think he misses those opportunities this week. So you just match it. This is going to be a freaking game. It's not going to until 60 minutes are done. You better be ready to go. And in some cases, it might take more than that. So you just match it and know what you're getting into and be ready for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You mentioned they have not run the football very well. One of their key impact players throughout the entire season, though, and one I think to isolate for this game is Etienne, their running back. To me, I just like they're going to try and run the football effectively throughout this game. If it's maybe not scripted in the first 12 plays, like so be it. But we know that the way to beat our team, I would bet that they try and run the football early. The way to beat our team is to hold on to the ball. I think it's imperative that they run the football and they run it well. So to me, it's not about stopping the sprinkles for sure. But I like if we can stop the run, then we make it that much easier ourselves on the pass. And I think that's kind of where the focus has to be, at least early. And then more importantly, in my opinion, it's about taking care of the football. Like,
Well, in my opinion, I think our offense is better than Bama's. And so I think they learned from trying to run the football versus Bama and got down by 3 touchdowns. I don't think they're going to do that. They
it
capped back by tossing it around.
it
Um,
is
and,
better than Bama's, I but Quinn put up a kind of iffy game of tape last week. And it wasn't just the pick on the first drive. It wasn't just the second drive where we had to go 3 and out. I felt like most of his throws all day were not where they needed to be, even easy ones, even bubble screens to the outside, which he'll clean up. And I have faith in him to do that, but it needs to be there in the first half. Like we can't give them easy opportunities early. And you're right, but the one thing that Quinn doesn't have that Jalen Milroe does have is being the best the best running quarterback in college football.
yeah,
So
but I think he threw 4 touchdowns that game. And so, yes, they're going to decide. Listen, they're not in position to be stubborn and try to force running. They have one loss. If they try to force the run game and we get up by a touchdown or two at home and this place is rocking and our defense is that good, and that's another thing. I think our offense is better than Bama's. I think our defense is way better than Bama's, who has a pretty good defense.
certainly there's no
And
debate
so,
there. Yeah.
so
Can't
I'm
believe it's
saying I
insane to
get what
say.
you're saying hypothetically. If we're talking football, yes, they should try this. They're not in position to do that. They have to go with their best. As simple as that. And if their running game is not very good, they're going to do it in other ways. They're going to throw to that receiver in a bubble screen. They're going to throw it to that tight end in a 5-yard deal. They're going to try to stay ahead of the chains. So no, they're not going to force the run game because that would be insane considering what our defense has showed they can do against it. And they
Yeah.
just are just a bit too desperate to try to force that. They can't play keep away. They have to
Right.
just beat us and outscore us and do all those things.
Script wise, kind of what I like worst case scenario for us is they throw early, gas our DBs. then it's close, right? It's neck and neck. Maybe we have a turnover or two because we're sloppy on offense. Then they try and run and milk clock. Like, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, I agree. That's why I said, like, script wise, I don't think they're going to run a lot early. But as we will try and do, and as we've done effectively when we've gotten up on teams, Wisner really ate in the third quarter against Oklahoma, right? And we want the same thing to happen. Is like, once we get a lead on someone, we want to get out of the game too. Like, we're not trying to milk this thing. And I think
Well, one other thing
we
to
have
think
an
about.
advantage for certain.
One other thing to think about when we go back to, especially the ranked teams and the Power 5 teams, and this happens in locker rooms. Guys, they're good. The defense is good. But Michigan didn't know who their quarterback was going to be. Oklahoma playing their backup quarterback. Mississippi State quarterback not that great. We haven't played a Beck, so why not see if are we as good as advertised versus a potential first overall pick? And so all those things I feel like is being considered and talked about. And so I think, yeah, man, that you have to go with your weapons. And he is a massive weapon. He has a lot to prove. And so in their mind, they're going, these guys are good, but look at who they're playing. Beck, are you better than him? Are you better than him? Our receiving core, they say they have the best in the country. Are y'all better? Challenging them on that level. This is what you play for. When we went and played Ohio State, we didn't go, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that. No, we got to hit them in the mouth, be more physical, and do what we do and find a way to win. And that's just what I see. And in my experience, we can overthink it. No, hell no. This is go get it time. This is a top 5 matchup with game day, with the night lights. And whatever you do best, you better do that and do it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's also strength. I'm hearing how you guys are talking about the game script potentially going, and it's kind of strength versus strength. I mean, especially if we just highlight the Alabama game, like they got back with huge chunk plays.
Yeah.
That was how their MO is big plays, and they could do it. Great. Kudos to him, and kudos to that offense. We know what they're capable of. We've seen the tape. But that kind of, in my mind, at least looking at our personnel and the way we play football and defense, that kind of lends itself to our strength too. Because how much time do you think you're going to have back there to wait and get your receivers downfield and get that big chunk play? Like how much time do you think you have? Because guess what? We have Moore and Sorrell, and when they're off the field, we have Burke and Hill and Simmons. It's just like a rotating door of guys who can, sacks are great, and we want to bring the quarterback down, but we have guys that can at least make his job really, really tough. Draw him out of the pocket, try to make him run, and he's not a great runner. And by the way, that's not including our DBs, who not only hit hard, but are great in coverage. Barron is the number 2 rated corner in the nation. That's just a fact. Makuba is a top-rated safety in the nation. By the way, one of the best stories in college football, one of the best stories on the team, Mr. Michael Taft, number 16, one of the top-rated safeties in the nation, walk-on. So not only do we do a fantastic job of getting to the quarterback, our safeties and our corners can cover and prevent the deep throws. And not only is that the case, our linebackers, Gabenda, he's just all over the place again. Another DB
going back to Oklahoma. We talked about Bender spying and take care of business. I mean, I don't think anything in the world is perfect, but I promise you that was the closest damn thing to it, what he did with that quarterback. And then with the synergistic, Anthony Hill, D lineman, it was just as it was pretty special to watch. And collectively, you're hitting the nail on the head. It's why I feel so good about our defense. And I also feel like you trying to make a 10, drive play on our defense is hard. You can try to get over the top. Like they've proven it. The stop rate, number 1 in the country, right, Nick? You just said that. So your best bet is to throw it up. And let's be honest, you got a 50-50 deal. You got to catch it. You get a broken pass, you get a PI. So I really say 33% deal. And 2 of them not great for the defense. So that goes into my perspective of they are going to play a little bit desperate. They know how big this is, and they know if they don't win it, what it means for their potential future. It means losing the SEC championship and watching Bama go to the playoff. It could be. I know it's Game 7, but is that real across the landscape when you already had a oops?
Yeah, you said,
Yeah.
Josh, he's not a great runner, Carson Beck, and he's not, and he doesn't run a lot. What we saw in the first half, especially on the call of the Red River rivalry game, where I think was it Herbie who was on the call? Was that who it was?
Yeah.
Yep.
And he
Kirby
was
and Fowler.
he was imploring Quinn Ewers to make the decision to tuck and run and to not waffle between that, right? Where there were a lot of open running lanes for Quinn, and he was waffling, and he wasn't getting the yardage that he needed to, or he just wasn't making the decision, and he was staying in the pocket, and he was forcing a throw. Beck is going to be forced to make that decision a lot, and if they're in 3rd and long, there's going to be situations where Benda's looking at him being like, okay, 8 yards to gain. Who's going to get there first? Right. And that's where we just have a massive advantage, and you're going to take a lick too. And cause we're going to drop those guys back. Cause our guys we got the best ball hawks in the nation. They're going to make those plays, Juan, that you're talking about, where it's an opportunity for a DPI, for a pick, or for a completion. And their receivers are solid, but they're more like across the middle of the field, open things up, run in space guys, as opposed to those 2 freshmen that play at Alabama and Ohio State who are winning jump balls left, right, front, and center, who also like acknowledge.
Y'all know he was 17 years old and he
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Golly.
They were
categorize himself, and that man, good Lord, man. We've heard it. The hell with that. That dude is unbelievably good.
Yeah,
I want our guy to get some love though in the mix with those 2 guys.
Wingo, yeah.
He's a beast. And I think from a play calling standpoint, we've seen, right? We saw in that OU game, it's getting kind of impossible for Sark not to include him in the script. He's too good.
He's physical. Do you want to take it from there, Toss, and give me an offensive player, a defensive player, and an overarching thing you want to see in this game?
Yeah, offensive player. I mean, I think that Isaiah Bond being playable and being out there is really important for us, because I think they're going to be locked in on Gunner, who's been incredibly effective and been Quinn's security blanket. And as he tries to kind of hit him early and Golden early, Bond stretching the seam and just making their defense, keeping them on their toes a little bit downfield is really important. So I want to see him play the entire game offensively. Defensively, I think, you mentioned Trey Moore. Great. Hurries are fantastic, but sacks are better. Like, get to the guy, grab him, put him on the ground. And you can praise him because he's been solid. I haven't seen enough of him still, because the rest of the guys are eating, and he needs to get in the sack category. That's what we brought him in to do. And if we can get Carson Beck on the ground early in this game and punish him, like, we're going to be in a position where he lets the ball loose early, and then again, our DBs make plays. So those are 2 of my kind of key players. Again, like with this team, like, I think our personnel is just better. So if we play mistake-free football, I think we walk out with a W. So on the offensive side, just no fumbles, no picks. Like, we'll take care of it. We'll be fine.
Nick?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to try to key on Gunnar Helm, but I don't think they're stopping him. I think, it's one of those things where he's starting to raise his draft stock each and every week. And, Brock Bowers was the number 1 tight end for Georgia for the last couple years, and there's a new king in town. So I think Gunnar, continues to assert his dominance around college football and starts to work his way up draft boards. I mean, the guy is a freak, for one, but 2, I mean, just look how big he is, right? Like, that's like your prototypical like Gronkowski like type of, tight end. Like, Brock's a pretty small tight end. Like, he's like 6'2", maybe 6'3". Gunnar Helm's at least 6'5", almost 6'6". He's a house, and he blocks well too. So I think, for him to be able to create some space for himself and help in the run game, but also in the pass game, like, what's he going to do? So he's my big offensive guy. On defense, like, I mean, this is just beating a dead horse at this point, but like, if you're the number 1 guy, and if you're going to be the number 1 defensive player in the post Mac Brown era, you got to show up in the big games. And Anthony Hill showed up every single game, But this is our biggest test so far, right? If you want to be known as one of those elite SEC defenders, here's where it starts. And seeing a big game out of him would speak volumes, and just only, continue just to raise the praise that everyone has for him. And then, I don't know how much more we can say about like keys to the game here. Like, we're doing everything that we need to be doing to win games. Like, I would say this is more for Sark. Like, don't get too fancy with the spices, right? Like, just play your style of game, and let's continue to assert our dominance, and not, try to get cute with the play calling. Like, just stick with what's been working best for you, right? Getting the ball to the playmakers, and that's really all it
Matthew
is.
Golden having more pass attempts than Arch Manning in the Red River beatdown is wild.
Yeah. Hey, one of those plays worked, but you know what? That ball that Gunner did jump up and catch was in triple coverage, so that could have easily been picked.
Oh my God, yeah, it could have been a train wreck. Q, how about you, man?
You know what? I actually, from an offensive standpoint, I think it's going to be in a little bit different capacity because Wiseman's a beast. He's running great, and they always do it by committee. But I think for me, it's Jaden Blue. I think really him catching that ball out of the backfield, getting a little shimmy, and getting open in space, and having chunk yards, and that eliminates so many things. You got a linebacker that has to come get you. Our receivers are running them off for blocking real good. And I think him catching that ball, that's just such a safe throw for Quinn. It's just, I don't want to say it's uncoverable, but at times it seems like it. Instead of you taking somebody out there doing the Peyton Manning, pick play, run out and run somebody under, it's that with a running back that can catch it on that level. And we know Sark in his history with Najee Harris and all the above likes doing that, Bijan. And so on offense, I think it's Blue, but it's catching the ball. If he has 5 or 6 catches for 70, they're in big trouble. On defense, I think it's Jahdae Barron. He's the quarterback of the defense. And so occasionally, these guys like to go in the middle. Oh, no, bro. Let them know that we don't allow that very much. But if you need to help over the top versus Makuba and the different guys, he's done. That's the thing, man. Their communication, I've just been nerding out on it a little bit. And they have talked more. And you see Taft. I mean, the other day when you saw Taft on that blitz, I was like, did he know the snap? He planned that so perfect, but his preparation, the way they prepared, the way they and I looked I looked straight at the receiver, and that dude had somebody within 5 yards on him. So their assignment, savvy execution, crazy plays that they've been making, it's not on accident. It's because their quarterback on defense has put them in the right, position. They've made the right calls, all the above. And so I think certainly my man Blue on offense, and no better time to come out and have that comeback party at home against, Georgia, and then Jahdae, who, like you said, number 2 in the country. You can jump up to number 1 real quick, but with a pick or a recover fumble and just, shutting down an offense on this level. Keys to the game for me is taking care of the ball. Ultimately, when I said it, we're getting to this level where, again, we have to kind of beat ourselves per our roster. And so that's the way you do it. If you don't take care of the rock, you have pre-snap penalties, crap like that. It's now they're going to happen. Let's be real. But if you minimize it and take care of the ball, if we have 0 turnovers, I'm with the people that you talked about, Josh. I don't know that 5 is enough. If we have some, Georgia's a team that can take care of business. But 0 turnovers, we're going to be really, really hard to beat because I do think our defense is going to get 1 or 2.
Yeah, I mean, you guys hit all the players, hit all the points. Gunnar Helm was my guy. I won't reuse him.
Josh always goes last. He's like, damn it.
It's all right. Look, you know what? It's a sacrifice you got to make. I will say on the Gunnar Helm point, you're auditioning for the NFL, not the spring track and field team. You're not going in the 400 hurdles, dude. We have a great
that runs the lady that runs McLaughlin. You are not McLaughlin at the 400 hurdles, dog. Quit jumping over people. You cannot get to that next level if you're banged up. So just take your yards and get ready for the next play. You're too valuable.
He wants it to be his signature move so badly.
Be happy with your one highlight.
He got him. He already got him. He got him.
You're not the Undertaker. You don't need the tombstone pile driver or choke slam. You don't need a signature move. It's football. I will just shout out Hayden Connor, our left guard, doesn't get as much love as Banks and Williams. Our highest rated pass blocker last week in 35 snaps and 89 on PFF is phenomenal. And one of my favorite guys, you guys talked about a Swiss Army knife table, like a lunch pail type guy in Bolden on offense. Jalen Gilbo is that for me on defense. He's all over the place making tackles, one of our leading tacklers, and he's been pretty stout this year. So I have to shout him out. And as customary, because we were close last week, so let's close out the show, and I will go first. 42-28.
Oh, good Lord.
Letting up a lot of points there.
Yeah.
Who's going next?
Josh, Josh is going to go at the end. So, right, you're going to change it at the end after we.
I'll change it at the end after I hear everybody else.
Oh man, I actually think they're going to make some plays, and I think it's going to be fun. But I think we're going to make more. So, I think old Curly is going to get it done for us. I do like the line. I'm going to go 31-28.
Wow, close one.
Ooh.
Nick,
they're playing desperate.
I'll go next. Nick, you can round us out because I think we got something fun coming from you. I'm gonna go with, let's say, they're a good defense. So is Oklahoma. We still put up points on them. As many as we put up on some of our opponents, and while we have been continuing to play offense late in games and not taking kneels, we haven't been playing like incredibly aggressive once we know that the game's over, trying to put up excess points on teams. I'm going to go 37-24 Horns. So we cover.
All right. I'm going to go 44. 44-21.
Oh God.
Bro.
Hey,
you will break the internet. You will break ESPN. We beat them that bad.
Check it. You guys all paused in silence last week when I said that we'd win. What was it? 34-10. Is that what I said?
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, murder on the dance floor, right? Well, that pretty much happened. It was actually worse than that. Okay, so I'm being a little bit liberal here. I think that our offense scores the most points they've been scored on all season long. 41 is the most points they let up against Bama. I think we have a better offense than Bama. And B, I think our defense comes to play, and I actually think they're probably going to score less than 21 points. But I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're a good team. This over-under is pretty high. It's 56.5. And so, I think that we're going to handle our own on offense. And don't be shocked if this game is worse than I predicted it to be.
If it is what you predicted it to be or worse, that would legitimately be the statement of the decade. And I don't think that's a hyperbole.
Bro, Mississippi State scored 31 points on them last week.
They did.
31.
They ran it on them a lot.
And Kirby shoved the quarterback.
I saw that.
It was ridiculous.
Not cool.
Bro. Not cool. All right, gents. Q, as always, enjoy the game.
Wait, hold on. I want to amend my pick.
You're allowed.
I'm by 1 point, 37-23. I realized that like giving them 3 touchdowns and a field goal, it doesn't sit well with me, but giving them 2 touchdowns and 3 field goals seems a lot more plausible.
I think that they've got a really great special teams, and their kicker's great. But if they're playing from behind, you're not playing for field goals. You know what I mean? Like that's why I couldn't give them any field goals, because like they need to score touchdowns.
But maybe it starts 21-9, and then they scored 2 touchdowns for their next 2 scores.
Yeah,
maybe. I've in the surprise to nobody, us and our listeners, I've fully been talked to Nick's prediction. I'm fully bought in on the 44-21. I'm fully bought in.
We all want Nick's prediction. I hope Nick's prediction is correct.
I'm fully bought in on that prediction. I'm good to go on 44-21. I won't amend mine, but I'm hoping that's the case.
I want Nick's in his head prediction to come true, which I think is like 44-6 or something like that.
Yeah. Absolute slaughterhouse. Q, enjoy the game. Anyone going to the game, enjoy the game. Those listening on ESPN 102.7, enjoy the game, and thank you for listening as always. We are Fisher, Tosopoulos, DJ, Nikki Snacks Kreider, and the number 6, Quan Cosby. Let's beat the brakes off him, as Q would say. Hook 'em horns.